So with that, I'd love to introduce our first keynote speaker this morning, Doug Weaver. Doug has been in the industry for 18 years. From his unique perch as a top advisor to digital publishers, he sees big trends and helps identify key issues with them. He's worked with over 400 companies, 10,000 digital sellers, and is well known for his keynotes, his workshops, and his blog, The Drift. So please welcome Doug Weaver.
John. You? So anybody that's spent any time with me knows that I'm kind of a frustrated stand-up comedian. In fact, my wife and daughters would put the emphasis on frustrated. And I kept telling them, I said, you know what, someday when all of this, all this hard work and all this revenue production is over, I'm going to end up on a low stage in a swanky place in the West Village with a brick wall behind me, entertaining a crowd. Look at me now, huh? Anyway, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I want to thank Bowen and Rob and everybody from Ad Monsters. You are not my normal crowd. You know, most of the time when I get together and speak, I'm talking mostly with sellers, sometimes with agencies, large industry events. So I really put some thought into what I wanted to say to you guys. Now, 2 bits of disclosure here. First of all, if my IT advisor, Monty, the guy who basically makes everything run in my business, knew that I was up in front of a group of technology professionals right now, he would have a very hearty laugh at my expense. Because he would tell you that you guys have forgotten more about technology than I will probably ever know. So I'm not here for the technical acumen of it. I'm here for something else. I'll also say that having worked with 500 different companies, probably worked with most of the sales organizations that you guys interface with day in, day out, I can tell you that they would be terrified to see you all here, because they would be imagining the smoking wreckage of all the campaigns that they have up there, knowing that your hands are not on the wheel. So hopefully you've put a good plan B in place. That's not going to happen, and that you being away from the office, away from those campaigns for these few hours is not going to have an adverse effect on their business. So let's talk. Whoops. Can we get my slides up? That would be great. There it is. Thank you. So in case you didn't know who I was, this is who I am. So my topic today is the future of ops, right? Greater than, not equal to automation. Because I think that from the conversations that I have with sellers and sales organizations, I think they have kind of a limited view of what you guys do. I think that they have a tough time kind of imagining what you can and really should be contributing to the overall product. So let me jump in. Whoops. So what am I here for? Okay. I think one of the reasons why I'm here is background. So as John mentioned, I've been at this now for 18 years. To put that in perspective, when I sold my first web ad, which was the third ad on the web back in 1994, the first commercial ad server had not been invented. The first commercial browser had not been released. Yahoo was not yet a company. So I've had the opportunity to sort of be part of this business from the very early, very simple stages, all the way through the massive complexity that we deal with today. And I feel like in order for us to go forward, we're going to have to really bring sales and operations into very critical alignment. You guys are going to have to be on the same page in a very positive way. And I don't see that happening yet. I mean, I see instances of it, but I don't see it being the norm. So what I hope to do today is to, number one, offer some perspective on the era that we're heading into. Because I like to, I have the benefit of being able to step back from the day-to-day and look at the big picture, look at the trends, and look at the different epochs that we're moving into. And we're heading into a very different time today, and I want to put some shape around that. I also want to expose what I think are the 5 lies about digital advertising that we keep telling ourselves, right? The received wisdom that we just continue to accept that's actually holding us back and poisoning the relationship between sales and ops. And then I want to lay out some ground rules for a more productive relationship. So if you give me 30 minutes, hopefully we'll make this productive. Above all else, it's like I'm here to throw a bomb, right? I'm here to do a little polite terrorism. if I do nothing more than if you disagree with me, if you end up talking about it later on in the day, if it evokes strong opinions, then I've done my job here. Okay? So I'm not here to bring truth. I'm here to bring a point of view, and hopefully action's going to form around that point of view, and it'll make this a more productive and better conference experience for everybody here. So whenever I speak to a group, I always find myself influenced by whatever I happen to be reading at the moment. And the book that I'm reading right now is a book called A Whole New Mind by Daniel Pink. A good friend of mine and a client sent me a copy of this book, and I'm just addicted to it right now. So the concept here, it's all about right brain, left brain dominance and so forth. And it really got me thinking about this conference. And specifically, this quote really jumped off the page at me. In an age of abundance, which is what we're in right now, in an age of abundance, appealing only to rational, logical, and functional needs is woefully insufficient. Now, the point of this is not that, is that we are all, sales and operations, being challenged to think beyond the numbers. We all have a tremendous amount of technical expertise. We have a lot of people who really want to descend into the weeds, talk about the numbers, talk about the technological details. And I think then that we're really challenged now, and what Daniel Pink believes is that in this age of that's ahead, the conceptual age, what he talks about, that the right brain is going to be ascendant, right? That right brain thinking, the ability to conceptualize, the ability to synthesize, the ability to see the big picture, right? To spot trends, to offer advice. These are going to be the skills that matter. These are going to be the skills that do not end up becoming disrupted by technology or automated out of existence. So let me break that idea down just a little bit. So, for starters, we all have one brain, okay? And that brain has two sides, as we all know. And those two sides influence each other and work with one another. Now, on the one hand, we have on the one hand, we have the left brain. And the left brain functions, those that are repetitive, factual, concrete, numbers-driven. Now, according to Daniel Pink, he says that, this left side of the brain was really, really important during the information age. But what we've seen over time is that a lot of these particular functions are the ones that end up becoming automated, becoming outsourced, right? Become commoditized over time, right? They can be shipped out. On the other hand, he believes that the right brain functions, analysis, synthesis, contextualization, big picture thinking, right? These are the things that in this conceptual age that we're a part of now are going to be on the ascent, right? That are going to become more and more valuable. So my point, as I'm thinking about this, there's not a split here between sales and operations. That's not what this is about at all. We all draw on both sides of the brain. We all draw both on our left brain and our right brain. And these two sides of the brain actually work together in synthesis. So whether you're in sales or whether you're in operations, the key is start to tap into that right brain. Think about the bigger picture. And I think at the end of the day, as we and John talked about this in his presentation, it's like, you know what, there's no longer this split in the business, right, where it's like, oh, I'm going to sell this stuff and I'm going to automate this stuff. It's kind of all coming together, right? So finding this balance, finding the synthesis between the two sides of the brain, between the two ways that we all can function, is a key. So as we all get in touch with our inner right brain thinker, it's an invitation. It's an invitation to the people in this room to become full participants in the strategic, big picture conversation with sales. Full active partners with sales in work that is at once analytical and creative. I think that is the ultimate birthright that you all have. But first, we've got to get rid of some of the lies that are keeping us apart. Right? The lies that if perpetuated and carried forward in the relationship are going to continue to create anxiety and stress and a less than productive relationship between operations and sales. We cannot afford to carry these lies forward into the next era of the sales operations relationship. So, without further ado, lie number 1, more targeting is always better. So I was having a conversation with Rob the other day, and we were talking through some points of the presentation. And I said, having been at this now for 18 years, going back to the very beginning of our business. And most people will tell you, oh yeah, the first advertisers online were direct response advertisers. And I said, yeah, kind of. But what they really were was direct mailers. Right? They were a lot of marketers that spent a lot of money on direct mail. So that mentality of the direct mailer will always pay a premium to make the list smaller because there are material costs involved, right? If you mail to fewer people, a better targeted list, you're going to spend less money on paper and postage and printing and so on and so on. So, so that is something that we've carried forward, right? That idea that somehow there's always something really good about mailing to fewer people. Even though the mail that we're doing now is going out via banner ads and 15-second pre-rolls and so forth. So that direct mailer will consistently pay more per name for that list that's more and more targeted. Not so much here, right? The assumption that buying fewer and fewer users at a time would somehow have a material benefit to our business and that we'd be rewarded by the advertisers doesn't happen. Why? Because we live in a world of abundance. There is no difference in the material cost. So whatever premiums were being offered are really not paying off. I'll take you back to a quick story from years ago. Before I started Upstream Group 14 years ago, I ran sales for a company called Firefly, MIT Media Lab spinoff. It was a company that was doing personalization and targeting and things like that way before it was fashionable. We actually invented our own ad server because the ad server itself had not been released commercially. So we went down because we could, we did. We went down the targeting funnel. We went through the looking glass. We started to target campaigns. And lo and behold, we learned the hard way the downside of targeting. What we found, and I think these things are still true, is that targeting drives down deal size. It drives up operating costs. It makes the entire deal, the entire business, less predictable as time goes by. And surprise, surprise, even among those advertisers that ask for more and more targeting, the more targeting that exists in the relationship, the less customer satisfaction there is. These are the big pictures that I saw then, and I still see it now. And right now, when it comes to targeting, the inmates have really taken over the asylum. True story. True story. Salesperson told me this in a workshop that I was conducting. Gets a call from the media planner for an acid reflux product, a little purple pill. So media planner calls up and says, and this was a medical site, says, we'd like to target acid reflux sufferers. Guy says, we got you covered. They actually had acid reflux, content. Wow, how awesome is that, right? So then he goes on and starts talking about what they're going to do and so forth, and the planner says, no, hold on. We want to target acid reflux sufferers who have had an acid reflux incident in the last 18 hours. We officially went on the other side of the looking glass at that moment in time. So it's time to understand that targeting is the frosting, not the cake. Targeting is a part of the strategy, not the whole strategy. Okay? It's time to stop the madness around targeting. Line number 2, everybody gets a fair trial. So salespeople are conditioned to believe that participating in constant trials, nibbling at the business, getting a chance to sort of prove yourself, somehow is going to result in a big, strong, productive business relationship, right? This is the natural path into a business relationship with a marketer. Well, I'm here to say that it's not. Too often, the ROI deck is stacked. There's not enough inventory in the deal to make a difference. So what ends up happening is that you just get into perpetual testing mode. You test today, you do marginally okay, you test tomorrow. These tests eat us alive. They take valuable sales time out. They add complexity to your guys' lives. It is not helping the bottom line for the site or the network to continually participate in these. Along the way, we also today have another element, another danger to all this testing, and that is that every time we start that engine, little hitchhikers jump on for the ride. Tags, pixels, trackers, you know the deal. Okay? Your workloads go way up. So the answer is for sales and ops to come together around some sane limits around testing. Okay? For those of you in this room to positively push back on tests, right? To set the parameters. Don't confront the seller with how difficult it's going to be for you and your workload to manage these things. Confront them with the results of a failed test. Talk about the total relationship. Aim for a better relationship. Let them know that you're there to help them secure that business and make it sustainable long term. Sometimes participating in the test can work exactly in the reverse of that. Line number 3, because we can, therefore we should. This is a big lie. I want to introduce a concept here. I want to call it the silver bullet rapture. Okay, you all familiar? Those of you who have studied biblical stories, you understand the whole concept of the rapture, right? I think what happens is that I think publishers live in mortal fear of being left behind when the moment comes. Oh, the silver bullet technology will be here, and I'm going to be left on Earth, and there's just going to be all these abandoned cars and buildings and sets of clothes there, and everybody else is going to have that opportunity to take part in the silver bullet rapture. And I think this leads us to some really bad behavior, right? I think one of the things that happens is that we feel like if something comes up, if there's a bright, shiny object, a new technology, a new technique, we've got to participate. So you end up having sales, operations, total publisher and network, sales organizations responding out of fear, right? Responding to trying to keep up. They end up in feature by feature firefights with competitors. It's not healthy. It's not healthy. So I think that what I would suggest is that this is where the right brain of this room comes into play. Ask 3 business questions, right? Layer in some business judgment into this conversation. Number 1, will it be profitable for us to do this? Focus on profitability. Focus on internal P&L. Will it be profitable for our organization to take on this particular new technology or direction? Number 2, will it be sustainable? Right? Can we do it long term? Is it something that we're going to be good at? Is it something that's going to materially make a difference in our business? Does it make strategic sense? And number 3, does it represent a market that will grow? And the immediate follow-up question that you ask is, so if it is, tell me who the second customer is who will buy it, and then the third, and then the fourth. Carve out that sales path. Line number 4. Data is the holy grail. Now, I want to do a disclaimer here. This one's kind of half true, okay? Because if you take the concept of the holy grail at face value. So if you go back to the story of the Holy Grail, let me see if I've got all the facts right here. Hundreds of thousands of Christians and Muslims fought wars of attrition and ignorance. There were huge clashes of culture. Lots and lots of people were maimed and killed, all in search of something that never really existed after all. So, if that's the case, then maybe it is a little bit true. But I think the thing about data is this. A lot of us have begun to sort of wave the term data around like it's a magic amulet, like it's something that's going to suddenly make everything better. If we talk about data, right? It's going to ward off evil spirits. I think that when I think of data as, above all, a business problem. We are drowning in data. There's too much data. We're overwhelmed by data. So I think where data becomes valuable is when we start to think about it logically as part of a business strategy, as we start to think about adding value to that data by analyzing it, by saying what it means. And we can all participate in that exercise. We can all become analysts. We can all add value to this and make data into something that is truly of value. Without analysis, without a sound business strategy behind data, we do nothing more than offer up more and more raw material to a market that's flooded with it. So, when I think about the publisher, and I do a lot of thinking about this whole issue of programmatic buying and selling and automation and DSPs and trading desks and so on and so on. Work really closely with a lot of companies in that space. And I loved what John was saying about sort of like the two sides of like this business coming together, right? Us thinking about, us not saying, hey, we're here for the data solution, we're here for the automation solution, we're here for the revenue solution. Let's come together around that. Let's figure out a way for our companies to deliver value to marketers, in a sane, solid, strategic way, consistently, sustainably. And by the way, the idea that marketers are somehow just going to fall in love with audience buying, and that's going to be the game, I think that's a fool's errand. I think marketers have said very consistently they do care about context. They do care about placement. They do care what neighborhoods their brands live in. So that's not to say that audience doesn't have a value. It's not to say that data doesn't have a value, but it is to say that we need to achieve balance around the issue of data. And then finally, the fifth lie is that somehow operations gets displaced or diminished in an automated future. Now, by the way, disclaimer here. The connection I was going for between this picture and you guys was not simian. It was actually kind of cute and adorable, right? So I just wanted to be clear about that. So I think that, I think the first statement that I'd like to make around this, that kind of puts this lie to rest, is the idea that it's always been what we do beyond what's automated that defines us. Automation establishes the floor. We dance on the floor. We do things beyond that. So right away, there's a lot of ground that you guys are going to be challenged to cover. So whatever gets automated, that becomes the baseline. You work above that. You work beyond that, right? I could paint the picture for you. Mobile, iPads, tablet applications, you name it. There's so much to come. There's always going to be a new bridge to cross. But as you cross that bridge, I hope that you do it I hope that you look to cross that bridge completely connected with the right brain. Because in each new era that we go into, it's going to be your judgment that matters most. Your counsel is what they cannot live without. Your vigilance is priceless. So, I want to leave you with a little practical advice. I always like to end things with something that people can walk away with and actually do something with. So I want to talk about the ground rules for what I think is a new and more productive relationship between you guys and the salespeople who I spend most of my days and nights with. Oops. Advice number 1, act as the consigliore, not the lawyer. Okay? The lawyer is the one who tells you, no, Michael, don't do it. Right? Tells you about all the horrible things that are going to happen. The consigliore is so close to the seat of power. The consigliore is right there. They're the one who's going to figure out a way to make it happen, who's going to have your back. So imagine a different kind of relationship, a relationship where sales and operations are not at odds with each other, but where they're in tight partnership. So some of the questions that you'll ask as the consigliore when faced with a thorny, technical problem that's presented to you by a sales leader is, so let's take a second. How can we make this even bigger and better, right? Align with sales. How can we make this more sustainable? Let's look at the long-term picture. Let's look at what we want to accomplish for this advertiser long-term. How can I help you win deal number 2, deal number 3, deal number 4, and so forth? How can we introduce scarcity into this model? How can we make this something incredibly special and limited for this advertiser, which is going to make them feel great about doing business with us? How can we build it so the customer will renew? How can we build this so that we can gain market share and close out your competitors? Another piece of advice is to build common goals around interim metrics that build a sustainable business. So I always say to the sales leaders that I work with that, like, if all you're counting is total revenue, right, one quarter over the other. Obviously, we all have that number in the backs of our heads. But if that's all you're counting, then you're making a very, very foolish mistake. Because now is the time when we need to look at the quality, the durability, the balance in our business. So I would suggest that you unite around some of these common business metrics. Look at the average deal size. Okay? Any healthy company, the average deal size is going up. The objective of the company is to have fewer and bigger deals in the system consistently, right? They should be tracking that and measuring that year over year. Effective CPM. What's interesting is that, I think, it's ironic that, that RTB and Race to the Bottom both have the same initials. And I feel like, there's this tinge when we talk about automation and when we talk about processes and operations. It's kind of like, there's this sense that somehow we're managing loss. I don't buy it. I think that the good organizations are thinking, like, how can we add premium to what we do? How can we make this even better? How can we create something that marketers are going to pay extra to be a part of? So we should unite with sales leadership around the idea of like, hey, how can we take the CPM up? At our seller forum meeting in 2 weeks here in New York, we'll be talking to sales leaders about, hey, how can you organize your existing assets in some creative ways so that you can make inventory more valuable? Not after it goes unsold, but like when you've got that marketer in the room with you at that moment in time. Deal composition, the balance between premium inventory and run a site, run a network inventory. Renewals is something that your organization should be counting. Target account spending growth. You want to get close to a sales leader, then talk about the target list. Sit down and have a conversation about the 10 accounts that he or she thinks is going to matter most. And unite around service metrics. As I put it here, unite around a vision of the transformative business experience. Now, one thing that I think we have to keep in mind is that we're going to enter a period of business consolidation. We're going to enter a period where marketers are going to say, I don't want to spread my money all over the table like casino chips. I want to spend more with fewer partners. So that consolidation is going to be real. And I think one of the things that we have to think about is who are the companies that they're going to consolidate their spending with. So I want to read to you something that I posted in my blog, The Drift, yesterday. If you bear with me, this is the end of the, it was called, the name of the post was, It's the Experience, Stupid. And I ended with these two paragraphs. The truth is, we do not achieve organizational personality because we do not strive for it in an organized way. We're not manufacturing consistently outstanding business experiences for our customers because we're consistently manufacturing excuses for not doing so. Oh, our business is so fast-paced. It's all about the technology. The customers only care about bottom-line performance numbers. Yada, yada, yada. If you've been kicking this particular can down the road until now, well, you're running out of road. Continually responding to pricing pressure by cutting rates is like selling off pints of your blood. Works okay for a while, but it's an unsustainable long-term solution. And if you think you're going to simply invent your way out of the corner, that's an even taller order. No, the real solution is right in front of you. Create a customer experience that's transcendent, unique, and addictive. A given media planner may or may not put your site on a given plan, but long term, it's the experience that binds one organization to another. And experience is a variable that you guys control. So I had drinks with my friend Doug Wentz last night. This is not Doug, by the way. But we were sitting and talking about this, and he said, at a certain point in the conversation, he says, a lot of these folks are going to say, well, Doug, it'd be great if you could just go train, our salespeople, like get them to do this stuff, get them to set the table for this conversation. So two points in that. Number one, I probably have already. At some point, I guess our overlap with your organizations is probably pretty tremendous. But if I leave you with the sense that nothing's going to change until somebody else takes action, then I've kind of left you powerless. So I'll leave you with this thought. I think the key to this better relationship is being the change that you want to see in the world. So if what you want from the people on the sales side is more empathy for the job that's in front of you, more understanding of the challenges that you face, if one of the things that you want is for them to be more patient, for them to think more strategically, for them to think longer term, to think about the impact of what they do, the impact of what they do on your day-to-day lives, then turn it around. Greet them with the same things that you want from them. Reach out. Think like salespeople. They'll begin to think more like operations people. Bring them into the relationship by living your own way into it. So I am just about out of time. I'm going to leave you with two thoughts. Two thoughts from two guys who I know and respect. One is from my old boss, Louis Rossetto, who hired me back in 1994 to open the New York office for Wired magazine. And Louis had this great way of just really summarizing things. In an age where we are drowning in data, context is the ultimate luxury. This is the invitation into the right-brain relationship. This is the invitation to participate with your whole self, to bring your creativity, to bring your vision, to bring your synthesis, to bring your contextualization skills into the fore. To be that consigliore, to be that person who comes into it with a point of view about making the relationship bigger, with a point of view about what success means. And then from my friend Clay Shirky, a great writer in our space, those who learn how to live simply in the present get to decide what happens in the future. The answer is not more complexity. The answer is to simplify. The answer is to simplify, and sometimes asking the right questions can be the ultimate exercise in simplification. So I hope that I've asked some of the right questions this morning. I know we want to get you back on track in terms of your schedule for the day. I really appreciate it. I hope that a lot of you will join me, will sign up for the drift, will connect with me on Twitter, and it's been an honor to talk to you. Thanks.